Starting today, your entire monthly salary and all your bonuses will go directly to the family fund. If not, you're no longer part of this family. Those words fell on the dinner party like a cold blade. I thought I'd misheard. The soft music in the restaurant seemed to vanish. The twinkling lights reflected off the wine glass my mother was raising. She smiled that gentle smile I once believed was full of love and raised her glass higher as if she'd just offered a toast, not an ultimatum. I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "You're not serious, are you?" Julian, my older brother, stood beside her, adjusting his suit collar, nodding in lieu of a reply. His gaze met mine without a hint of hesitation. Calm, smug, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. The room fell silent. Carla, my cousin, stared intently at her glass of white wine, avoiding my eyes. Uncle Ray focused on finishing his steak. Aunt Evelyn busied herself rearranging her napkin. No one spoke up for me. No one seemed surprised. I stood up. The chair scraped against the tiled floor, a sharp, chilling sound. My mother didn't stop me. She didn't call me back. She simply clinked her glass with Julian's and continued chatting with the person next to her, as if I hadn't existed that evening. "My name is Michelle. I'm 32, living in Seattle, working as a systems engineer for a company specializing in cloud architecture. My job isn't glamorous, but it's stable. After taxes, I take home about $500 a month, not much for this city, but enough to live independently, save, and send family support regularly, like an unspoken tax. I live alone in a small studio apartment in Belltown. No husband, no kids, no pets. Few friends. My life revolves around work, the grocery store, the gym, and simple home-cooked dinners. I don't buy designer bags or upgrade my phone yearly. I don't have time to rest because there's always some family bill I need to cover. My mother, the woman who just raised her glass to claim my income in front of relatives, used to be a wonderful mother. At least I thought so. She'd make honey-roasted chicken whenever I visited and always asked about my health after long work trips. But over time, her care turned into surveillance, then control, then ownership. Julian is my mother's creative hope. He studied design, but dropped out to chase entrepreneurial dreams. Over the past 8 years, he started 3 companies, all of which failed. Each time he moved, changed girlfriends, started over, and I was the one paying off his credit card debts. My mother called it investing in the family's future. As for me, I don't have a future. I have obligations. This 60th birthday party was my doing. I booked the venue, ordered, the food paid, the deposit, chose the wine. It cost nearly $4,000. I only wanted my mother to have a nice evening, secretly hoping foolishly that she'd publicly thank me for the first time. Instead, she stood up, raised her glass, and declared me the official sponsor. I left the restaurant without looking back. No one followed. No one asked if I was okay. I got in my car, floored the gas, and drove aimlessly, my heart a tangled mess. Seattle at night was colder than I expected. The streetlights reflected on my windshield, blurred like a distorted dream. I thought back to the first time I sent money home, just $200, when Julian couldn't pay his rent. My mother called, thanking me profusely, saying, "You're my pride." Her voice made me cry. I felt grown useful. I don't know when I started burning out. Maybe it was my 3rd year working when I paid the down payment for my mother's car because she said, "Your father's gone. I'm not confident handling things alone anymore." Maybe it was when Julian went on a 3-week meditation retreat in Arizona and forgot to pay his credit card debt. Or maybe when I canceled my first vacation because my mother had an emergency dental issue. Every time I tried to say no, my mother called me the most dependable in the family. Julian texted, "No one understands my pressure like you." Bit by bit I disappeared, and they got used to it. Tonight I stood up, and no one stopped me. I pulled over by a lakeside road, turned off the engine, sat in silence. No music, no checking my phone. I just stared at the dark water as if it were a mirror reflecting myself. I remembered my mother's eyes when she spoke those words. No pleading, no remorse. Just a calm expectation, as if she was certain I'd nod, as if she believed I wouldn't dare refuse. And the scariest part is, she might have been right all these years. I always came back, always forgave, always sent money, always took a step back. But this time, looking in the rearview mirror, I saw a stranger, not because I'd changed, but because I finally saw the role I'd played for too long. I started the car. A red light glowed in the distance. I didn't know where I'd go tonight, but I knew one thing for certain. I wouldn't be anyone's wallet anymore. I couldn't sleep. After wandering the streets for hours like a lost ghost, I returned to my small fifth-floor apartment, slipping off my shoes with one hand in the dark. The familiar room suddenly felt foreign. Each step on the wooden floor echoed louder than usual. I didn't turn on the ceiling light, letting the dim desk lamp cast a weak, yellowish glow. My laptop sat there in sleep mode, oblivious to the fact that my life had just been upended by a single sentence. I opened it, typed my password. The screen lit up with familiar tab system analytics for a client, unfinished technical documents, tomorrow's work schedule. But I didn't open any of them. Instead, I opened an Excel file I hadn't touched in months. The file name, Expenses M&M. It sounds cute, like a shared budget for a couple. But M&M stood for Michelle and everyone. Because every expense in my life, electric bills, tuition for a niece, birthday gifts, or paying off Julian's bizarre debts, started here. I scrolled to the oldest entries from 2017. That was the year my father passed away. One March morning, my mother called sobbing, saying he'd had a stroke on the couch. No one was prepared. He left behind an unfinished mortgage and a stunned wife and children. I took 3 weeks off work to arrange the funeral, sort papers, comfort my mother, and start carrying the load. I thought, I'm an adult now. This is what I have to do. I began paying the mortgage. The first month was $1,750. My mother said she'd repay me once the life insurance came through. But then the insurance money went to fix a leaking roof, then to renovate the kitchen for a rental space. I didn't ask questions. I just kept sending money. The next month, Julian called. Sis, I'm swamped with deadlines for a new project. Can you cover my rent this month? I agreed without hesitation. I believed he was trying. Julian was once the light of our parents' eyes. He was a gifted artist, winning state-level art awards as a kid. We all hoped he'd become a renowned architect. But he dropped out of college in his sophomore year, saying academia stifles creativity. He started his entrepreneurial journey at 24. A coffee shop called Canvas Brew closed after 4 months. An app for connecting creatives, ArtMe, didn't survive beta testing. Then a natural candle startup, Wick and Whisper, failed after Julian spent the budget on a Napa Valley conference. Each time my mother said, he just needs one more chance, and that chance always came from my bank account. I stared at the numbers in the Excel file, consistent every month, at least one transfer outward. Some months it was nearly $3,000. I even canceled a trip to Italy with friends because Julian needed emergency capital. When I hesitated, my mother called. Are you choosing a vacation over saving your brother? Are you that heartless? Another time, when I refused to pay my mother's credit card bill for a new sofa, she calmly said, I don't need you to buy flowers. I need you to be reliable. I thought I was strong. But now I realized I'd let them assume my silence was consent, that my giving was permanent. I stared at the spreadsheet. By the end of last year, I'd sent nearly $78,000 to the family, almost a year's salary after taxes. I sighed, feeling both cold and angry, not because of the money, but because I hadn't dared admit I was being used by the people I loved. I remembered the times Julian stayed at my apartment for a few days to regroup. He always brought a new girlfriend, used all my spices, wore expensive cologne, and left me with double the electric bill. When I spoke up, he laughed it off. You need to relax. Money's not an issue for you, right? Money wasn't an issue for me until it became the only thing that made me exist in their eyes. I stood, grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge, took a sip, and sat back down. I didn't cry. I didn't feel like a victim. I just felt empty. As if a part of me had died, along with the last shred of trust. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. I hesitated for a second before opening it. Darling, I know tonight was a surprise, but I believe you'll understand. Our family needs you. I left a letter in the gift bag tonight. Read it and let me know. Friday is the first deadline. I glanced at the paper bag by my desk. One of my aunts had handed it to me as I left. Your mom asked me to give you this. I pulled out the envelope, cream-colored with slanted handwriting. I opened it. Dear Michelle, I'm sorry for bringing it up at the party, but sometimes change needs a push. Our family can't keep living disconnected and alone. Julian and I are trying to rebuild our bond, and you, as always, are the strongest one. You can help us build a foundation for something lasting. The family fund isn't a sacrifice, it's a shared investment. I believe you understand that. The first transfer deadline is Friday. Julian will send the bank details. Love you. Mom? I folded the letter carefully, very neatly, then dropped it into the trash bin by my desk. I sat still for a long time. Then I opened my laptop again, created a new file, named it Exit Plan. Because if they thought I'd keep going as before, it was time I taught them a concept they'd forgotten. I'm not a walking bank account. and I'd start by disappearing the right way at the right time. Maybe right after the lunch I had planned, because I had plans for that lunch. And this time, I wouldn't be the one paying the price. People say when someone's had enough, they leave quietly. But no one teaches you how to walk away from your own family, especially when you don't leave with footsteps, but with numbers, boundaries, and blocked calls. The week after the birthday party, I began redrawing my own map. On Monday morning, I walked into a bank and opened a new account under my name, unlinked to any old ones. I requested no mail sent home, no confirmation calls. When the clerk asked, "Do you want to link it to your current phone number?" I gave a small smile. No. I'm starting over. That noon, I sat at my usual coffee shop, sipped my weekly espresso, and logged into the company's payroll system. I changed the bank account for my salary and removed my old home address from HR records. I sent a brief email to HR. For personal reasons, please update my account details with the attached information. Everything else remains the same. Thank you. I hit send, feeling lighter than when I'd requested time off. Over the next 3 days, I rented a small one-bedroom apartment north of the city, far from downtown, far from my mother's house, and off Julian's drop-by route. The apartment was simple, but had large windows, natural light flooding in each morning, and most importantly, no one knew I was there. I didn't change my phone number right away. I wanted to see what they'd do. On Thursday morning, I got a Venmo request. Sender Julian. Message expanding the family legacy. $1 or 200. I stared at the words and laughed, not out of amusement, but out of bitterness. Expanding the family legacy. As if I were an honorary sponsor for a crumbling dynasty. I didn't respond, didn't decline, didn't accept. I left it. 5 minutes later, my phone rang. My mother. I didn't pick up. 10 minutes later, a text, Sweetie Julian says, "You're being cold. You should rethink this. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill." Then another, "The family has always relied on you. You're my pride. Don't break our bond over a moment of impulsiveness." By the afternoon, another, "You're isolating yourself. No one blames you, but you shouldn't be so selfish." I shivered. No one blamed me, but I was still guilty. I opened Julian's old texts from the week before the party, when he called me the best sister in the world. Now just vague words laced with reproach, empty platitudes and the shadow of an unnamed obligation. That night I blocked my mother's number, didn't delete it, just blocked. And for the first time in my life, I slept 8 dreamless hours. On Saturday morning, I got an email from Jess, my cousin, my aunt's daughter from Oregon. Jess always stayed out of family disputes. Quiet, studying design, living independently, she'd occasionally text me always at the right moment. The subject line, "You've shaken the family tree." I laughed at the first sentence. "The family group chat is on fire. Julian just announced you agreed to send money. Starting this month, your mom says you're losing control." And Uncle Ray concluded, "The younger generation is so selfish." Jess continued, "You did what we're all too scared to do, say no. And you said it loud. Loud enough they can't pretend not to hear." I read that part over and over, and I felt lighter. It turns out when you step out of an old mold, you don't just free yourself. You make a sound. A small tremor, but enough to crack a wall no one dared touch. I opened my phone, looked at my blocked contacts. For the first time I felt I was steering my own storm. Not running, not passive, but designing every detail like I do with systems architecture. That weekend I walked around Lake Union, stopped by an old bookstore, and came home to cook a proper meal. Not rushed, not eaten at my desk, not interrupted by calls. Just me and quiet. I thought about Julian, about my mother, about how people can repeat a pattern so much they believe it's natural, that the strongest must carry, that the successful must give back, that love means unconditional acceptance, but family isn't a one-way contract, and if they didn't learn that from my silence this time, I'd make sure they heard me clearly. That evening I opened the family group chat, once filled with stickers, birthday wishes, fundraising links, and photos of building a startup together. I typed slowly, "Let's meet. Same restaurant, 1 p.m. tomorrow. My treat. To talk." I sent it. A minute later, Julian replied with a thumbs-up emoji. 3 minutes later, "My mother, I knew you'd come around. Bring the transfer slip, sweetie." I stared at the screen, then turned off my phone. If they thought I was coming to surrender tomorrow, they'd learn a new concept: boundaries. I arrived early, not out of nerves, but because I wanted to be in control. I chose a table by the window, where soft light filtered through white curtains, and kitchen noise faded into a faint hum. The server recognized me, nodding with a polite smile. She didn't know or care that this wasn't an ordinary lunch. This was an unacknowledged trial where I was the defendant, the witness, and the only one with real evidence. I didn't wear my usual jeans and sweater. I chose a simple, elegant dress paired with a long, smoky gray coat. Not too fancy, not attention-seeking, but enough to show I wasn't here to bow. At 1:10 p.m., my mother walked in. Julian trailed close behind. She smiled when she saw me walking over to grasp my hand as if nothing had happened. "My girl, you've finally come to your senses." Her voice was sweet as honey, but her eyes held the confidence of someone used to winning. Julian didn't hug me. He pulled out a chair, placed a stack of printed papers on the table. "Here's the draft transfer agreement. Look it over, we can adjust if needed." I didn't touch it. "We haven't even ordered and you're already handing me a bill." He shrugged. "Just keeping things clear. Transparent." Then he turned to my mother, smiling. Mom was right. Working with Michelle is always efficient. I picked up the papers, barely 5 pages neatly printed. I skimmed $2,800 monthly transfers to an account in Julian's name, the family fund managed by him. Any bonuses over $10,000 would be docked 70%. Any freelance income would contribute 60%. I looked up at both of them. "What's this fund for?" I asked, my voice light as a breath. My mother didn't hesitate to support the family. "Julian's restructuring his business model. I'm retired with joint issues and Uncle Ray just lost his job. There are expenses to handle. Everyone chips in a little." I asked again, slower. "So, who's this fund for?" She blinked. Julian leaned back in his chair. "For everyone," she said. "Not for you. You're already fine." Her answer silenced me for a moment. Not from surprise, but from an old sour pain resurfacing. I set the papers down and pulled a hardbound folder from my bag. I slid it toward them. "This is a full record from 2017 to now. Every transfer I made, every advance, every emergency gift. Over $78,000 in total." My mother's eyes widened. Julian frowned. "You're keeping a ledger on family." He nearly stood up. I looked straight into his eyes. Because no one else did except me. No one spoke. I continued. "No one in this family ever asked if I had enough. They only asked if I could. Every time I sent money, I canceled a plan of my own. A vacation, a class, a small moment of peace. I didn't track it to tally up. I tracked it to remind myself I existed here not just as a wallet." My mother pursed her lips. "You're exaggerating." I nodded. "Maybe, but at least this time I'm the one speaking." Julian grabbed the folder, flipping through it. "Money isn't something to reevaluate relationships over." I smiled, no joy in it. "Exactly, but you made it the foundation of our relationship, and now you're surprised when I shine a light on it." I stood up. My mother panicked. "Sit down, let's eat. I already ordered for you." I picked up my bag, pushed my chair in. "I'm not hungry. And you don't need to order for me anymore. Just like you don't need to decide my role in this family." Julian's voice hardened. "You think this is over?" I looked at him then, at my mother firmly. "I'm not leaving to escape. I'm leaving, so you'll see without me things will have to work differently." I turned and walked out of the restaurant. My mother's voice called after me, "Michelle, come back here right now." I didn't stop. I walked steadily straight with one thought ringing clear. They just lost their smiling ATM. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just 2 words, "call back." I looked at the message and gave a faint smirk. I don't know when I started feeling at peace. Maybe it was the first morning I woke up without checking for texts from my mother, without facing questions like, "Can Julian borrow some money?" Or, "Have you thought about what I said yesterday?" Maybe it was realizing I could walk a full loop around Green Lake without carrying a heavy weight on my shoulders. No one called. No one texted. No emails about family funds, obligations, or love. No relatives asking me to organize a reunion they never truly wanted. I thought I'd feel empty, but I didn't. I felt vast. I spent time settling into my new apartment. 1-bedroom light wood floors, afternoon sun streaming through the kitchen window. I bought an old bookshelf from a secondhand market, picking up novels I'd abandoned years ago now, daring to read them again. I signed up for a Saturday drawing class, not because I'm good, but because I was free enough to be bad without guilt. I went to the gym 3 times a week. The first session I was so out of breath I thought my heart would burst. But the second, I laughed. Truly laughed, seeing myself in the mirror, sweaty cheeks flushed. For the first time in years, I saw I could become a better version, not for anyone else, but for me. I started documenting my meals. Not to count calories, but to remember I ate well. I was present. I learned to cook elaborate dishes: porcini, mushroom risotto, seared salmon with lemon butter sauce. Every Friday night I picked a new recipe, played music, poured a glass of white wine, and let myself live slowly. Then one Monday morning, as I was making coffee, my phone buzzed. A bank notification. You have received $12,000 in account 8924. Transfer note starting over, J. I froze for a few seconds. My hand holding the coffee mug trembled. I opened the banking app to confirm. It was Julian. No further message. No apology. No explanation. Just 4 words starting over, J. I sat down. Questions swirled in my mind. Was this real? Was someone playing a trick? Julian, the one who sent a Venmo request for family legacy, quietly sent back $12,000, no fanfare. I didn't reply. I didn't text back. But I wasn't angry. Instead, I felt calm. As if a thin layer of dust had been brushed off a memory that once exhausted me. I didn't think the money made up for the years I was treated as an exploitable resource. But it was a sign, small but real, of change from a side I thought incapable. I opened my phone, texted Jess, heard anything from Julian. Less than 10 minutes later, she replied, "He's working at a warehouse south of the city. Data entry, inventory tracking. Not glamorous, but it's a real job." I read it 3 times. Not glamorous, but a real job. Maybe for the first time in nearly a decade, Julian was standing on his own without me as a crutch. I leaned back on the sofa. Part of me wanted to call him, check in, say thank you. But another part stayed quiet. I wasn't ready to talk. And maybe the best thing I could do for both of us right now was stay silent. A silence not from anger, but from respect. That weekend I stopped by a small coffee shop near my place. Long wooden tables facing the street, strong coffee-soft piano music in the background. I ordered a latte, sat in my usual corner, and brought along a draft of an article I was working on. I watched people pass by across the street. No one knew who I was. No one needed anything from me. And for the first time I realized that wasn't loneliness, it was freedom. I opened my phone, pulled up my notes, wrote 1 line. Not because I hate them, but because I chose to love myself first. I read it again, nodded. Soy. I received the letter on a Wednesday morning, a few days before Thanksgiving. An ivory envelope, familiar handwriting, slightly slanted, careful, a bit shaky. No sender listed, but I knew it was my mother's. I sat still at the kitchen table, hesitating before opening it. Part of me didn't want to read it, afraid of finding the same sweet accusations, the guilt tucked into carefully chosen words. But another part hoped for something different. I opened it. Dear Michelle, I'm not sure you'll read this, but I still wanted to write. For the first time, not to convince you, not to get you to agree, but just to be honest. I've thought a lot. About you, about Julian, about the years past. I was wrong. Not because I don't love you, but because I got too used to you carrying us. I forgot that loving someone doesn't mean expecting them to sacrifice forever. We used you. Not intentionally, but it's the truth. We used your kindness like a habit. I'm not writing to ask you to come back. I know if you want to, you will. Just, if you're eating alone this year, I saved a plate of roasted chicken like always. Even if you're not there, I cooked your portion. Love you, Mom. I read to the end without realizing I was holding my breath. Then I set the letter down. Didn't tear it. Didn't fold it right away. I left it there intact. Honestly, I'd braced myself for blame, one last attempt at manipulation. But no, there were no demands, no moralizing tone, nothing but the truth, and something I hadn't dared hope for acknowledgement. I didn't cry, but my heart softened like water calming after a strong wind. Still, clear, a little cold. That evening I didn't go anywhere. I didn't call anyone. I stayed home in my small apartment, my small kitchen, with the white wine I chose. I made roasted chicken my way, following my mother's old recipe, honey-glazed thyme garlic and coarsely ground black pepper. I didn't cook to replace a family meal. I cooked because I deserved a decent one, even if I was the only one at the table. I played music, a soft music instrumental. Opened the window. A cold, early winter breeze slipped in, making me shiver briefly, but not enough to close it. I poured a glass of wine, sat at the table, cut the first piece of chicken. No phone, no TV screen. Just me, the warm aroma, the quiet, and gratitude for myself for the first time. I wasn't lonely. I used to fear silence. I feared a holiday without anyone at the table. But it turns out that fear didn't come from emptiness. It came from never allowing myself to choose. I'd assumed the role I had to play for so long that I forgot being alone in peace was its own kind of happiness. I thought about my mother, about the letter she wrote maybe after sleepless nights. I pictured her sitting alone in her kitchen writing those lines by hand instead of email, as if to acknowledge something words couldn't fully express. Maybe she hasn't fully changed, but I believe she truly understood. And that alone was enough to let go of the last bit of anger I held. I thought about Julian, about the warehouse job Jess mentioned. I haven't called him. I don't know if he's truly starting over or just pausing, but I know if he wants to keep anything between us, he'll have to walk toward me with empty hands and an honest heart. I don't demand they come back the way I once dreamed. I only hope if they do, they'll see me not as a living wallet, not as the steady sister, not as the invisible foundation for a shaky family, but as a person. A daughter, a sister, a woman with boundaries, with the right to say no, and with love that doesn't come with conditions. I took the last sip of wine, stood up, and cleared the dishes. As I washed my hands, I saw my reflection in the kitchen cabinet's glass door. My eyes weren't sunken anymore, my shoulders no longer slumped. I smiled at that image, not because I thought I'd won, but because I knew I'd come back to myself. Not everyone returns, and not everyone who leaves carries resentment. I'm no longer a bank, no longer a sacrifice. I'm Michelle. I still love my family, but from the side of freedom. And if one day they truly want to see me again, the only path is this: come without demands. Because this time I'm not carrying anything else except my own life. I turned off the light, closed the window, and went to bed early. Tomorrow I'll start something new. Not an obligation, but a choice. My story isn't just a family conflict. It's a journey to reclaim myself after years swept into the vortex of duty, responsibility, and silence. Through each step of letting go, I learned that true family doesn't come with conditions, and real love always starts with loving yourself. I'm not sharing this to blame or complain. I'm sharing it for those who felt exploited in silence, who felt alone among loved ones, to know they're not wrong for setting boundaries, not selfish for choosing their own peace. If you're on a similar journey, I hope you find the courage to say no when needed, and the gentleness to forgive yourself first. Thank you for following my story to the end. If it resonated with you, please follow my channel to share more healing journeys together, because sometimes a small story can be the start of a new life.